My name is Dustin Miles. I'm with Momentum Multifamily, and I'm super excited to have Mike here today. I'm trying to think. I guess we've known each other about a year ish or so. We're actually in a mastermind together. So better life. And anyways, I'll hand it over to Mike. And yeah, please introduce yourself and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So my name is Mike Curadossi. I grew up in Massachusetts. I now live in Jupiter, Florida. I invest mostly in. I started off single family, got into small multifamily. I'm still kind of buying small multifamily now. 6 to 8 unit buildings. That's kind of what's in my market. I specialize in doing mostly affordable housing now, Section 8 stuff. I have great relationships with a lot of the housing authorities in my area, and that's really what I'm focusing on now. Um, just to kind of give you a sense from an investing standpoint, I started about 10 years ago. I started with a flip. It worked out great. Flipped the house and, you know, made 60 grand, thought it was awesome, and then forgot I had to pay tax on that money. So that was a crusher. So, and because I went out and spent the money and bought a couple condos to rent out. And, so I was in 20 grand of debt with the government. So, but since then, I have 56 units right now currently. I own 38 of them myself. The 18 units I bought back in November, I own 51% of, which we can kind of dive into later if you'd like. But my portfolio is valued over 18 million right now. My equity is 7.8 ish, and I'm cash flowing just over 58,000 a month. So um, and personally cash flowing after distributions are made out of the property, a little over 47. So that's kind of where I'm
Wow.
at.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And just to I think this is the case, but just to kind of clarify, because you said personally, so that's after all expenses, taxes, any sort of rehab or maintenance.
Yep. Yeah. So that's like
Awesome.
what is in my bank account. And this is factoring in, CapEx and maintenance and all the expenses for owning the
That's
property and
awesome.
maintaining the property. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. Cool. Uh, well, kind of just interested. It's a little bit outside of at least the space that I'm familiar with and all that, and so that was part of the appeal. I thought it'd be fun to bring you on, and what are you looking for in a deal, and kind of I know you're in Florida and you solely invest in Massachusetts. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I started a meetup. I've been in Florida just about 2 years now, and I started a meetup in Jupiter because there wasn't one, right? Because I wanted to kind of learn more about the area, and I
Mhm.
want to invest down here eventually. Because the one thing I really miss, I have 3 young children, and they were very involved in my real estate, right? Like I'd take them to Home Depot on the weekends, and it'd help me like bring light fixtures in. So I really just loved instilling that in them. And
That's
that's kind
awesome.
of what's lacking in my life right now down here is that I'm investing in mass, right? So
Yeah.
they just think that I don't work, right? So like they're not seeing, the behind the scenes stuff. So,
Yeah.
we still go up there for 2 months. So I'll drive around properties with them, but I really want to get into it down here. Just don't know exactly what that is. The Florida market's been tough with,
Yeah.
insurance and just so much competition down here. So I'm still investing in Massachusetts currently. Like I have an 8 unit under contract and another 8 unit hopefully under contract today. But
Mhm.
really, what I look for is the delta between in place rents and what I know I can get paid from the housing authorities because I've learned Section 8 and HCV vouchers, housing choice vouchers, very, very well over the past 10 years of investing. And I have great relationships with every housing authority I work with. So the cool thing is when I have a unit available for rent, I just send an email to the housing authority and they fill it for me. And
Wow.
I have units in the area, so I know the exact amount of rent I can get for a 3 bedroom or a 2 bedroom or a
Right.
1 bedroom, right? So I can really work from my gross income, right? My gross collected rents, and I know what that's going to be, and then I can work everything backwards and see what I can pay and what I can operate with, right? Like I look to cash flow a minimum of $1,000 a unit once the unit stabilized, right? And I can achieve that. So really it's finding a landlord that's owned a property for a while, maybe has market tenants, maybe has some Section 8 tenants, they just haven't increased rents. And like we can get into the deal before, but I increased rents over $1,000 a month over 15 of the 18 units in 90 days, right?
Wow,
So
incredible.
super simple process, and no one else wanted that deal. And the only reason I wanted it was because 17 of the 18 units were rented to Section 8 tenants.
Right.
So yeah, that's my niche right now, and I'm hammering it. And I can still find deals. I can still make deals cash for over 1,000 a unit. So which is
That
why I calculate like I have 56 units, and my portfolio is bringing in 58K a month in cash flow. So yeah.
wow. Wow, that's crazy. I know when I was doing single family, I was shooting for 300 bucks a door. So yeah, 1,000, that's pretty awesome. Well, and I think, well, one question I have, because initially, and so Florida's landlord friendly. I don't know anything about Massachusetts being, whether it's landlord friendly or not. I guess, I would assume maybe not, but have you had to evict? Like, what is, if you did have to evict, what does that process kind of look like for you?
Yeah, so in Massachusetts, it can take 6 months to a year to more to evict someone, right? So that's a huge thing. But the good thing is with renting the Section 8 tenants, right, is that it's the same exact process, right, with a market
Mm.
tenant or a Section 8 tenant. So, but for me, like I'm actually going through my first eviction right now,
Mm.
um, and it's my fault. I rented to them and I shouldn't have. I didn't kind of follow the systems I have in place now not to make the same mistake. So, but they're paying me. I'm looking at the rent now, so I get $4,047 for a four-bedroom,
Wow.
and their tenant portion of rent's $568 a month, which they haven't paid me in probably 5 months, but I'm still getting 3,479. So,
Okay.
which I mean, I'm still cash flowing great. Like I'm cash flowing 500 bucks in the unit instead of 1,000, right? So, I don't
Yeah.
really. If it takes 6 months to get them out, it takes 6 months, and I'll go
Okay.
turn the unit and I'll get someone else in. So, for me, like I actually kind of like investing in Massachusetts. Yeah, it stinks to evict someone, but my rents are high. I get my systems in place. If people do fall behind, there's so many. Um, there's an organization that can pay their back rent, can pay security deposits. So, they really do look out for the tenants. But, you know, I've had other people who are behind actually get money through a program called Raft. And they haven't just because these people are lazy and they don't feel like filling out the paperwork. So, hence why they're leaving.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it would definitely be easier to be a landlord in Florida for sure. But, um, I kind of limit my downside with renting the Section 8 in Massachusetts. So, and having systems in place so I get good people. So,
Yeah, gotcha. Where did the $1,000 kind of that cash flow number? I mean, it looks like it sounds like a nice, good number to me. Is that just so you have plenty of buffer for everything, or where did that number kind of come from?
so like you, when I first started, it was 300 bucks, right? Like if I could
Okay.
get 300 bucks a door, like I was all in, I'd go buy it.
Yep.
And like luckily now that $300 is now way over $1,000 a month in cash flow because
Mhm.
this was back 8-10 years ago, right? So rents have increased from 1,800 to 3,600, right? So um rents have doubled, which is great and which I benefit from. But the thousand units really just for me underwriting deals and looking at what I can buy and where I can buy it and what the numbers are, and that's just what I can get. So now, like a good deal for me is cash flowing $1,000 a month. A a bad deal is obviously not, right. But if I can go in and cash flow 800, 850, knowing what the rents have gone up year over year over year, like I don't want to project out, but I know that okay, in the next couple years, rents are going to go up at least 200 bucks through the fair market rents on HUD,
Mhm.
that's published every year. So like if I get 800 this year, next year I'll probably be at 1,000. If not next year, a couple years I'll be at 1,000. So if it's a good property in a good area, I'll still buy it for that. But really, I look for 1,000 bucks stabilized, and that's really just from like I said, just because I know I can get it. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
And what, because I just, don't know a ton about Section 8 and all that. We have, some Section 8 tenants and things like that. But what, what is that rent increase? Do you know what it's been the past 5 years or last year? Or what does that rent increase typically look like?
Yeah, so my market year over year, it's been going up about 250 bucks. like whether you're in a one bedroom, two bedroom, three bedroom, four bedroom, it's been going about 250. You can
Wow.
actually go right on the HUD website and look at their fair market rents and whatever market you're in, and you can
Okay.
click like 2018, 19. You can actually see
Hmm.
in your county, in your zip code, whatever, however it's done on the HUD website, because some of them are going to small market FMRs now, which is broken down by zip code, and some are still by county. So it really depends what area you're in. But yeah, you can track it and look and see what them are going up in your market. But for me, it's been between 200 250 year over year for the past 4 or 5 years. So which has
Okay.
been great for me. So
Yeah. Right.
and
Yeah.
the rent increase process, right? Like as long as the biggest thing I look at when I underwrite deals is okay, what's the bedroom count of the unit?
Yep.
If it has a Section 8 tenant in place, what's their voucher size? Do they
Mm.
have a 3 bedroom voucher? Because if they do, I know I can increase their rent within 60 days up to the new 3 bedroom payment standard from that whatever housing authority they're with. Because every housing authority doesn't pay the same amount either, right? So,
Right.
some pay the fair market rent that HUD releases, and some can pay up to 120% of that. So, like the first thing that I look at is I get the rent roll and I see, okay, what housing authority is everyone with? I ask, in due diligence, okay, I need to know their voucher sizes, and if it matches
Mm.
the bedroom count, I know exactly what I can raise rent to.
Right.
So, and I'll reach out to the housing authority, confirm it just to make sure. And then, like I said, as soon as I close, I send a rent increase request form. And, some housing authorities, you got to give 30-day notice. Some you need 60. So generally 60 to 90 days out, you have your increased rent. And like, you don't need to renovate anything, right? Like you don't need to put a ton of capex in the building. Like you just, as long as you pass the Section 8 inspection, you increase your rent and you get it. So,
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. Okay.
yeah.
Um, is just curious with how, I guess, how did you stumble upon this? Did you meet someone that was doing it and they're like, hey, do this and this and this? Or did you just kind of just kind of figure it out on your own? What that process look like?
Yeah, so about it's probably 7, 8 years ago now, 9 Oakdale Street. I renovated it and I had a tenant, Jody, reach out to me through like Zillow or Craigslist, when it was finished. And, she asked if I took vouchers. And I responded, I'm like, I have no idea what that is. So,
Yeah.
so she's like, oh, well, this is my housing worker. She kind of briefed me on how it works. So I reached out to the housing worker, figured it out. I got the payment standard set to me, and I was like, okay, like this works really good.
Yeah.
So I liked her a lot. Her kids were very polite, and she's actually still living in my unit right now. So she's been with
Oh
me
wow.
8 years. And like I said, so she's the same one. So I was getting $1,800 a month for rent, and now I'm getting 3,675. And her tenant portion of rent is based off of her income, right? So
Yeah.
tenants pay up to 30% of their, well, they can pay up to 40% of their income in rent. They like to keep it around 30, but that's it. So like you can increase your rents, and your tenant portion of rent most of the time doesn't change. So there's
Wow.
zero incentive for people to move, because like a market tenant moves when you go up in the rent because they're like, I don't want to pay that much rent, I'm going to move, right? But whereas with what I do, I go up on people's rent and they don't care because they're still paying me the same amount of money.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's no. Yeah. Nothing doesn't hit their pocketbook. So who cares?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I'm a good landlord too. Like, I don't know, it kind of, I feel like Section 8 has a bad name, and there's a lot of bad landlords, right? Like, there's a lot of
Yep.
slumlords that do the bare minimum, don't fix stuff. But
Yep.
like, I pride myself being a very good landlord, so like, I don't feel bad putting in rent increases and getting more money from the government, right? It's there, and I'm doing a really good job. I'm giving a good product. I'm creating stability in housing for people that don't have a ton of stability.
Yep.
I treat them well, So for me, it's like, the rent increases are kind of my bonus for running and operating a good business and treating people well. So
Yeah. That's awesome. I guess kind of going back to, I think that especially the circles, or I've talked to investors. They're like, man, I don't like low income, or not. Well, that's not what they said, but just it does have a bad rap, and they're investors are looking at places to put money. They're like, there's concerns there. And so this is, yeah, it's interesting to kind of hear, kind of your perspective. Have you had, any I don't know the program real well. I assume if someone does trash a place, that and we see that, in market, all, I don't say all the time, but we do see that on the market side, just open market side. But have you had people just trash the units? Like if they don't treat the unit well, are they booed from the program? What is there Are there any safeguards in place to make sure that they hold up their end of the bargain?
Yeah, so the people in my market are waiting between 8 and 10 years for their voucher, right? So that's how
Wow.
long the wait list is.
Okay.
So when someone gets on a voucher and they sign a lease with me, so I sign a lease with a tenant, which is my lease, right?
Uh-huh.
And then we also sign a HAP contract, a housing assistance payment contract,
Yep.
which is an agreement between me and the housing authority and the housing
Yep.
authority and the tenant, right?
Mm.
And on that
Okay.
contract, if they get evicted for cause, they lose their voucher, right?
Wow.
So, like these people I'm evicting right now, like they need to go find a new place to live so they don't lose their voucher. Because if they do, like, where are they going to live, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
I've had tenants tell me before that, that's their golden ticket, right? Like they're going to do everything they can in their power to not lose that voucher because, I mean, you obviously can't afford to live, right? Because you have a voucher. So what happens when that's gone?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
do have a lot to kind of hold over your tenants, and honestly, I can go into my screening but like if you're renting the Section 8 tenants, you need to very thoroughly go through their rental application and verify they're not lying on their application. Like that is, but like, because
Oh,
if I was renting stuff out in like downtown Boston and everyone that applied was a young professional just getting out of like Boston College or BU, right? Like obviously you're, and they're working at Grant Thornton or some big company. It's like okay, well, do I really need to go that deep into their background check? But what I do is I tell people straight up, if you lied to me on your application, I will not rent to you, period. Like, don't lie about anything.
right.
So I'm
Right.
very upfront. I'm like, look, if you've made a mistake before, tell me about it because I'm going to find out, right? If you've been
Yep.
evicted, I'm going to find out about it. So tell me your side of the story so I can understand, if you have bad credit. Why do you have bad credit? I don't care if you have bad credit, but just be
Yep.
upfront and honest. You've been arrested before. What happened, right? Just tell me because the number one thing people lie about and with what I do, right, are their landlord references, right? So they'll put their brothers, their sisters, their cousins,
Oh.
whatever, right, and say it's their landlord. So what I do is I'll actually skip trace the person and the number they give me, right, and see it's 20 cents. And I'll go through and verify it lines up. I'll go on the property assessors database and I'll look up who owns the property. It's an LLC. I'll go in the LLC, look up, and I'll verify that it's actually them that owns it.
Wow.
So, and I do that with their current landlord and their previous landlord because their current landlord would lie to me, right? If
Sure.
to get them out if
Yeah.
they're evicting them, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really care about the previous landlord because he won't lie to me. He's got, he'll tell me the truth, right? So, and when I go in and I call the landlords, I find out like when they bought the property, what LLC it's in, is it in a trust? So I know things that a brother, a sister, a cousin won't know about the property, right? So I basically interview their existing landlord first to verify that it's actually their landlord.
Mm.
So that's one thing that will weed out a ton of people right off the bat. And then I also do property inspections of their existing unit where they currently live. And
Oh,
I
wow.
will not falter on like that is 100% has to happen. If you won't agree to it, don't waste your time filling out the rental application.
Right.
So that's
Right.
right on my rental application. And the reason, so I have two bad tenants. All my other tenants, you could eat off the floor. The reason,
Wow.
and the lady I'm evicting because she like she got a dog she wasn't supposed to have. The thing like crapped all over the house. They're like the
Oh,
place is
geez.
trash. It was beautifully renovated when they moved in. So, but if I did a property inspection at her existing property, I would never have rented to her, right? So like
Mm.
it's my fault. Like I just shouldn't like if I had that system in place at the time, I would never have been renting to her. I wouldn't be going through an eviction, right? So,
Right.
um, and this happened to me before. Like there was a woman that came through one of my properties. She had a couple kids. The kids were like super polite. They took off their shoes, they used their manners, and I was like really impressed with them.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, great. So I went through the whole application, it checked out. She said she did not have a boyfriend living with her. And that's another thing, right? Like a lot of people leave off that they have a boyfriend because they have a voucher. The
Mm.
boyfriend's not on the voucher, right?
Yep.
So I tell people like, look, if you have a boyfriend living, you just tell me. Like, I want to know who's living at my properties. I want to do a background check to make sure they're not like a foul, like didn't do something really bad, right? Like, I want to
Right.
know who's living at my properties. So I don't like just again, just be honest with me.
Wow.
So I drove to this lady's. I called her. I said, "Hi, I'm in the area. Need to swing by. I need you to sign like it was a like a credit thing, right?"
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, I need you to
Yeah.
sign this so I can put your credit." She said, "Okay, like where are you?" I'm like, "I'll be in there in 10 minutes." She's like, "Okay, I'm home." I pulled up to the property and I was greeted by her boyfriend, who she didn't have, right?
Oh.
And he starts talking to me, telling me how he just got out of jail and just got a job and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is not starting off great, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like,
Wow.
okay, just, can I come in and have you send this? She's like, oh, yeah, come on in. She's like, sorry, I do have a dog. Did I tell you I had a dog? I'm like, no, you said you didn't have a dog. And it was like a
Oh.
full bred pit bull in a
Uh,
cage, like trying to eat through the cage to kill me, right? And
wow.
I'm like,
Yeah.
so I didn't tell her at the time, right? I was like, all right, thank you for signing this. I appreciate it. I got back in my car, I left, right? And then I sent her a text and I was like, hey, you lied to me about a lot of stuff in your application. I'm sorry, I'm not renting to you. And she like called me crying and I was like, look, like you lied in your application, right? Like
Yeah.
don't lie.
Right.
So,
Yep.
doing these property inspections is literally the most important part of my business because
Wow.
an HCV, a housing choice voucher tenant stays according to HUD 8.75 years in the rental, right? So like if you
Oh.
do a good job up front
Yeah.
and you get really good people, they'll live in your property for 8, 9 years, and you won't have tenant like
Wow.
like your biggest line item is tenant turnover, right? Your biggest
Sure.
expense,
Yeah.
your unknown expense is tenant turn. And if you can minimize that to 8 to 9 years per tenant, like that's insane,
Yep.
right? So that's really too like the reason I cash flow so high, the reason I'm like kind of retired right now in Florida is because my tenants don't move, right? And I get really good people. I have a great screening process, and like I manage 38 of these units myself, and I work like if I had someone handle my mail, I'd maybe work like a half hour a week, like,
Mm.
and then that would be my life, right? But I can't do that, so
Right. Right. Right.
I need something to keep me busy. But yeah,
Yeah.
like once you have systems in place, and if you buy good properties in good areas, you'll get good people, right? If you're buying in war zones and
Yep.
really bad areas that you wouldn't personally live, like there's only a certain type of person that's going to want to live in a really bad area, especially if you have a 3 bedroom and they have kids, right? Like
Yep.
would you want to raise your kids there? Would you want your kids to go to those school systems, right? Like
Right.
so there's certain pockets where I invest that like I won't buy it. I like if there's a property there and a great deal, I won't buy it because I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
Gotcha.
you know
Wow. Interesting. Yeah, I was trying to think of any. Yeah, I think that and like I said, we have some Section 8 and some some housing, not our that's not our portfolio, like it is for you, but yeah, we've had some really good folks for sure. So I just think that that program can get a bad rap, and but depends on obviously who you talk to and all that, but so it's really interesting to hear. I didn't realize the length of time that that those that people in that program typically stay. That's awesome. So
yeah
and that's I think that's just really good for helps stability with the area and all that too. So I've never heard of um that thorough of a kind of a background, so that's super interesting, and makes a whole lot of sense. If you go by their current place and it's and it's in rough shape, I mean your place would be in that shape within a week or two probably. So
yeah, because at the end of the day, if you rent to a bad tenant, like it's your fault, right?
yeah,
Like it's they were a bad tenant before they moved into your unit. You were
good
just I don't
point.
know, dumb's the right word, right? But like you just
Yeah,
didn't do a
yeah,
good
yeah,
enough
or
job
lazy.
screening to put
Yep,
yeah, you're just lazy, right? Like you didn't
yep.
like I would bet you that like less than 1% of investors do property inspections at someone's existing unit, right? Because it
Oh,
takes
no
work,
one. Yeah.
right? Like it takes work to go do that. But like if you don't do that, especially renting to people who have vouchers, or just in general, right? Like my worst tenant was a market tenant. right? And they lied
Mhm.
about a lot of stuff in their application. I was busy with those stuff. It's probably like 6 years ago. They moved in. They never put the utilities in their name. They paid me 1 month's rent and stopped paying. Like they trashed the place. And like at the end of the day, I rented to them, right? Like it's my
Right.
fault. It's not their fault. It's my fault. So you
Yep.
just learn from your mistakes. And like I didn't clearly I didn't do all this stuff when I first started, but now I've learned from having good people and bad people. And another thing I also do too is I ask for their most recent utility bill because I want to
Mm.
make sure that they're paying the utilities, right? Because if they move into your unit and because as a landlord, right? Like say I'm turning a unit, I need to put the utilities into my business name, right? For 15 days, a month,
Yep.
whatever it is, until the new tenant
Yep.
moves in. And then the tenant's supposed to transfer it out, right? But
Mm.
if they have a balance already that they haven't paid from the last unit, they're not getting the utilities put into their name until they clear that balance out. So it's never happened to me before, luckily, but it's just something else I add in now to make sure that tenants are actually paying the bills they need to pay. Because if they're not paying their utility bill, they're probably not paying me their tenant portion
Right.
of rent either. You know,
Yeah.
so those are really the three biggest things that I require. Like I don't care about credit. Um, like I don't. It's just not a big deal to me at all. Like I'll
Yep.
still pull it and look at it, but it really doesn't matter all that much.
Yeah.
Um, you know, background check, criminal check, like I care about that. Eviction check, I care about.
Yep.
If they
And
got in trouble when they were 6 or 18 for something stupid and they're 30, like whatever,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
we all do dumb stuff when we're kids. But like if it happened 3 months ago and they lied to me about it, like I'm not
Right.
gonna rent
Yeah.
there.
Do
So
do you look at, for their portion of the rent, do you look at a certain multiple that they need to make, to be able to cover their portion?
I
Are
really
you
I really
are you
don't
3
because the
times
housing
or
authority does that.
okay.
So
Oh,
because
okay.
they can only
Oh,
pay
gotcha.
so the housing authority, they'll look at everything, right? They pull their pay
Mm,
stubs. They also pull, I think it's a TransUnion. I forget exactly what it is that they do just
okay.
to verify what their income is when they set their tenant portion of rent, right? Because if they lose their job, like perfect example, right during COVID, when COVID first started, like a couple weeks in, I got a letter from every housing authority I work with saying that if my tenant loses their job or their income changes, they'll pick up the difference. So for me during COVID, like I was
Oh, wow.
100% paid. Like I had some people
Wow.
be late, and that program Raft that I told you about, like I just had to fill out a tenant ledger, just saying what payments they missed, a W-9, and send it into Raft, and they
Right.
would cut me a check, right?
Wow.
So, which you can't do with market tenants. Like I have a market tenant
Yeah.
that fell behind. I'm like, oh, like it's one of my only like two market tenants, and I was like, oh, you fell behind. Her dad died, and she had funeral expenses and stuff. And I was like, call Raft, they'll help you. And she called me back. She's like, oh, like I make too much money, they can't help me, right? Which sucks, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not fair,
Yeah.
but it's the system. It is what it is. So
Yeah.
for me, it's just another thing to cover my downside. So
Mm.
like I'll have tenants. Like I have one tenant right now that owes me $600. She was working two jobs. She lost both of her jobs. Now she has no income,
Oh,
and her tenant portion of rent went from like 250, $300 a month to zero. So now the housing authority is paying me 100% of the rent. She's back some money, so I filled out the raft paperwork with her. So I know that in a month, probably this was 2 months ago we put it in, so I should probably be getting in the next 30 days. I'll get that back rent. It's just going to take, but I'm still cash flowing great. You know what I mean?
right.
So like,
Right, right,
it's
right,
only a
right.
small portion of the rent I'm not getting
Yeah.
that I can carry because I buy good deals. So
And and what does lending look like? And then, have you sold any of these deals? What does, potential, selling the deal look like?
yeah, so from a lending standpoint, for me, I've found it very easy to get lending. So, like an 8 unit building in a town called Weymouth, I'm buying right now. I just got the term sheets back today, and like they're amazing terms. And it was through a mortgage broker, and he's like, "Yeah, the banks aren't being like crazy aggressive right now, but
Mhm.
I actually have a master lease in place with a company. With it's an organization, Father Bills and Mainspring, and they're going to lease every single one of these 8 units from me and pay me one check every month.
Oh,
So
wow.
I have no tenant portion of rents I need to collect, nothing, no paperwork to fill out with the housing authority. Literally, as these tenants, like as their lease, I'm not extending any of their leases. I'm going to send them a notice when I buy it. As they move out, they move people in, and there's zero vacancy because it's in the contract. They pay them the 60 days for vacancy. So, and
Wow.
there's so many people that need housing with their program. I've never actually had one of their tenants move out, But in
Oh,
the
wow.
contract, if somebody moves out, they fill it, right? So
Wow.
I have zero turnover costs, right? They
Wow.
pay me based off of the fair market rents released by HUD. So every year for a rent increase, I literally just send them an email and they say, "Okay, Mike, thanks." And 60 days, I get a rent increase. So
Wow.
I'm maximizing my rents. I have no vacancy, right? So I'm making, I mean, 3 to 5%, whatever you normally carry for that every single year. And from a maintenance standpoint, like my biggest headaches are like replacing batteries and smoke detectors and like tightening screws. And so like that's like normally the stuff that I get because I go in and do a good job up front before they move in, and
Yep.
they do that. So,
Mm.
and I don't need to hire a property manager because there's a case manager with every single one of the tenants every single day in my building.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm also not paying a property manager, right? So I'm
Wow.
saving what, 5 to 7% from a property manager, and then
Yeah.
another 3 to 5% on vacancy, right? So
Wow.
what's that, 10%, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
roughly that I'm making more because I'm renting with them.
Wow.
So that's the only reason I bought the deal, and I have this contract in place, and it was in what I sent to the banks. So like I got amazing terms back, and this is for me like if I was keeping this on market, like the numbers don't really make sense, and it's a lot of risk right now with what's going on with the economy. But how I'm
Yep.
structuring this, like this deal's an absolute home run. So
Wow.
like I got great terms, and then I haven't actually sold. Like I'm a big buy and hold guy, and I've
Mhm.
1031 one single family building into 8 units. I actually sold that to my tenant. He was a market tenant,
Oh,
but I've never actually sold any of these deals. But it's going to take a certain person that's going to want to buy a property with Section 8 tenants in place, right? Like you're going to limit
yeah.
your buyer pool because so many people, like you said, have just really negative viewpoints of Section 8. But
Yep.
once you find the right buyer, I mean, if you're looking from a cash flow standpoint, if you're cash flowing $1,000 a month,
That's pretty
who,
phenomenal.
who wouldn't
Yeah.
want to buy that? So
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, super cool. I'm hoping, this kind of demystifies, some, like I said, some people do have kind of that perception, and hopefully this kind of helps with that. Look, everyone at the end of the day, I mean, we're all just, we all just want to, just try to lead happy lives, and have a, nice, clean, safe place to live. At the end of the day, we all have, that basic need. And so yeah, and this program, it depends on where you are, it probably changes a little bit, but that helps a lot of folks for sure. So
yeah.
yeah, anything, Mike, that you kind of want to close with or end with before we kind of wrap it up?
Yeah, no, I guess to what you were saying, I mean, for me, like, yeah, I'm cash flowing great. It's $1,000 a unit. Uh, but for me too, just like stability in kids' lives, right? Like
Hmm.
the fact that I get to provide stability in families' lives, and especially in the low income communities too. And there's probably not a ton of stability, unfortunately, in their lives. And if I can provide
Hmm.
them a great place to live in a great area, allow them to stay in the same school systems, allow them to know where they're sleeping at night, that to me, like, and
Yep.
knowing that, like, because like think about your best memories as a kid, right? I mean, for me, it was Christmas, like, Christmas morning, right? Or like
Hmm.
holidays and just like the different, birthday parties at my house with friends sleeping over, right? Like the fact that I get to provide that to people and that all those experiences are happening in my properties is like, it's really cool, So not only
Yeah.
do I cash flow great, but I'm providing a huge need in the community, and I'm providing stability in kids' lives, which hopefully will help the future generations you know, to thrive and do better. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, and then, and your background checks are so thorough that, they can feel good about, the neighbors that are moving in, that you're bringing, helping to bring in too. So that's, there's a lot of value in that. And there's probably a reason why, you have so many people living there a long time, and staying and all that, because you're providing a, nice, clean, safe place to live. So that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, absolutely. And if anyone wants to, I'm starting to put out a lot of content now. Like my Instagram, Section 8 Done Right. Same on Facebook. I actually too, I have a course I just released like all about
Mhm.
Section 8 because like I go to meetups and stuff, and like there's so like people here do Section 8 and they freak out. And it's
Yeah,
like, no, like
for
it's
sure.
actually like
Yeah,
very easy if you do it
yeah,
right, which is why I called
yeah.
it Section 8 done right. So if anyone wants to check it out, check it out. I'd appreciate a follow. So the
It
course is only $397. I priced it way lower
Wow,
than a couple of other people doing it. So 'cause I actually want to help people and provide more stability and housing for more people.
that's awesome, and what's your, website?
Section 8 done right, and 8 is
Okay.
the letter 8 or the
Oh,
number
okay,
8. Sorry, yeah.
okay,
So
gotcha, okay. Well, cool. Yeah, if anybody, I don't know if you want to give any other contact information, but or not, but yeah, really appreciate you being on.
yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, if you have any questions, anyone has questions, just hit me up on social media. I check it every day, so happy to help out in any way I can, and I appreciate it. And I'll see you on our next mastermind call.
All
This
right.
is a
Yeah.
lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, Mike. All right. Well, yeah, appreciate it. Have a great day, and I'll see you on Monday. Take care,
Yeah,
Mike.
sounds
See ya.
good, man. Later.
Bye.